All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for your patience while we lost our internet there for a few minutes, but we are back up and running. And I'm so pleased to introduce our final team and their presentation for the day. Terra Habitus is up next. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you all, Jen and Lorenzo. And knowing that we started a little bit late, you've got until about 12:25, and then we'll go to questions.
Well, good morning. Hello, everybody. So nice to be here with you. I'm Lorenzo Rosenzweig, and I'm here with Jennifer Gooden. She's our science officer. And with Jimena, she's our compliance officer. I met Jennifer in an ILCN meeting a few years ago, and Jimena was our CFO at Fondo Mexicano for 23 years. I'm also very happy to see our evaluators. Hello to all of them. So we will be talking about a conservation finance solution that has to do with the big challenge we have here in Monterrey. We have a water security and climate resilience project in Monterrey, and our approach will be through conservation finance. Next, please. As you all know, not so many next. Just one next. As you know, this project, well, you don't know, but now you will know, it's located in Monterrey, Nuevo León, a city in northeastern Mexico with a population of 5.4 million people. It's the largest city in the Rio Grande Basin, and it's the second largest economy after Mexico City. Incredibly, we have reached last year a crisis, a water resiliency, and a day zero situation where many sectors of the city had no water at all, some of them for weeks. And as in the case of climate change, the most affected were the people of the and marginalized communities. And anyhow, it was a big challenge for the government to get things going. This year, 2023, doesn't look much better, so we have to address this water resiliency issue. Monterrey is located in a place, it's a semi-desert area. If it wouldn't be for the hurricanes, since we are in the same band as many deserts in the world, we would be a desert, but we have the hurricanes. So climate change, land use change, and the incredible growth of the city thanks to nearshoring and the possibility of having a city-state in the future when we get closer to Saltillo, which is another industrial city close by, makes it an imperative to look at water resilience right now. Next, please. So this is a map that we prepared. The one on the left we prepared when we started working with the Peregrine Fund Accelerator cohort. So we included all of the projects that you have been seeing today in this map, and obviously it's available to you, whoever is interested, through our colleagues at the Salazar Center. And you can see in the box, in the upper box, you can see an amplification of Monterrey. And in pink, you can see the two cities, Monterrey to the right or to the east and Saltillo to the west. And what is in green is what remains of high mountains, and they have a huge influence in how we provision our water and how we recharge our aquifers. The image on the right reflects some of the potential priority areas for water recharge. And this is part of the story we will be telling you. We need to address the issue of water resilience, and we plan to address it by working on a 750,000 hectare polygon, which is in that picture, and is basically the area of influence, and that is more or less, if you multiply that by 2.47, that will be the number of acres that we have in that region. Next, please. So far in the past, and this is a recent picture of the Santa Catarina River. We will explain how it works and how it is related to a sub-basin, which is much smaller, which is 111,000 hectares. But so far, the solutions that we have been having since since they founded the city, have been engineered solutions. So we have channeled the river in 1953. We have constructed dams. 3 of them are providing water to the city. The dams provide 60% of the water, and the rest, 40%, is provided through deep wells. As I said, we have channelized the riverbed, and somehow the city has turned its back on the river. This is not exclusive to us. Many cities have done it, but I think it's a very sad thing to do. And as I said, the system is breaking down. We have a day zero already last year. Seems that we will have a few other day zeros this year. The water tables are dropping, and on top of that, every 10, 12 years, we have severe flooding. The last flooding was Hurricane Alex, 2010, and the academic sector prepared a socioeconomic valuation, and the loss was in the range of 20,000 million pesos. So roughly $1,000 million, if you would consider its rate of exchange of 20 to 1. And now, on top of everything, we have recurrent wildfires in the water basin. So all of these problems put together call for a new water management paradigm, one that works or that takes advantage of nature-based solutions, and one that looks at the big picture, which is not only the river and the corresponding sub-basin, but the whole area of hydric influence, which is this 750,000 hectares that I show you in the second slide. Next, please. So this shot from Landsat will give you an idea on how the city is growing. They are 38 years apart, but you can see that in many parts of the city there has been a consistent and urban growth, and all of those areas that have increased urbanization are now becoming areas where there's very little infiltration and that contribute to the risk of floods. Next, please. So we have, for the last 3 years, we have been working in a project we call Rio Ciudad, which is basically a river city. So it's a new vision for a climate resilient city where nature-based solutions to water management are applied. As I said, our area of influence is 750,000 hectares, which would be 1.8 million acres. And the core area, the area that has to do mostly with the floods in Monterrey, is the sub-basin, which is 300,000 hectares, which is 257,000 acres. So for this project, we have secured the interest of the business community. We're working with the state government. We have approached all of the ministries of the state government. We have had conversations with them and with their staff for the last 2 years. And we have secured roughly $1.8 million from those. Like half of it have been already disbursed, but the rest is pledged. And we are also working on a mandatory utility surcharge that will produce roughly $7 million a year for watershed management activities, and that's exactly the aim of our project, which is to help the government make that project particularly efficient, particularly transparent, and functional. So, as a summary, this is something that's an ongoing project. We already have the money for planning and design, but we are still looking for some resources in this particular case to help the government put together this mandatory utilities surcharge in place. And again, I have to underscore this. This will be provide money that does not exist now, that will come from the water users, and that will help us make a better management of the 750,000 hectares that they are critical for the water resiliency of the city. Next, please. So, what's the problem? And the problem is that with this particular surcharge is that the government has limited resources for promotion and communications. They don't have at this moment transparent governance mechanism for the allocation of such monies. There is no GIS effective system that we can use to monitor, to have a baseline, and to have a dashboard for everybody to understand where the money is going. And there is also scattered information about aquifer recharge priority sites. Also, as we have many organizations working here, there is a very limited coordination of restoration activities. Every year we have forest fires in the water basin, and although some institutions are doing great work in restoration, I think there's an opportunity to have more coordination. So that's our problem. That's what we need to solve. And again, we will be concentrating from now on in our presentation on how to make this utility surcharge a real game changer for water security in Monterrey. And I will pass it on now to Jennifer to explain a little bit about our theory of change and the project profile.
Hi, all. Again, I'm Jennifer Gooden. I'm a science officer with Terra Habitus. So Lorenzo has given us a context for this program. In summary, we have political support for a new vision of watershed management in Monterrey, financial support for planning and design of an initial program, and a budding financial mechanism for ongoing watershed restoration. But if we don't take additional measures beyond this, there's a risk that the public could protest the addition of a surcharge to their utility bills, the risk of opaque decision-making, and risks of ineffective restoration targeting. So in response, we've developed this program with a mission to ensure that Monterrey's utility surcharge program is deployed effectively, efficiently, and transparently for maximum benefit to the watershed. So to make that surcharge program work effectively, efficiently, and transparently, we have 5 essential tasks. First, we have to launch a public campaign to explain watershed restoration to residents. This is not something that will be obvious to everyone. We need to develop an accountable multi-party governance mechanism to design an ERP-supported operation system. An ERP is enterprise resource planning, and these are the back-of-house systems that help with project management, risk management, accounting, procurement, things like that. Create a GIS portal for planning and monitoring and impact evaluation, and develop a public dashboard. So here we'd like to talk about our target community and our key partners. The core beneficiaries of this program will be the residents of Monterrey. As Lorenzo said, it's a city of 5.4 million people, the largest city in the Rio Grande Basin. And they will benefit because the effective, efficient, and transparent use of money will lead to better restoration implementation in the watershed. And that will create increased water security, which is a major concern for residents in the city. So this is the primary purpose of our program. In addition, the people of Monterrey will also receive additional co-benefits, including reduced flooding, reduced catastrophic wildfire risk, and increased recreation opportunities and increased biodiversity. These aren't insignificant benefits, but we really focus on the water security as a primary driver. The figure on the left is, it shows the multiple interdependent roles in a watershed management partnership. And we see Terra Habitus as primarily occupying that center coordinator role, although we have some elements of some of the other roles together. This report actually, or the figure actually came from a report called Protecting Drinking Water at the Source. And I wanted to mention that because it was shared with us by one of our Peregrine mentors, Ben Guillaume from Conservation Investment Management. And it was help like this that pointing us to a report that talked about other watershed management programs that allowed us to learn from and build on what other people have done in places other than Monterrey. The other thing about this figure is that it highlights that while Terra Habitus may be serving as an initiator and a coordinator, this is really a major team effort. So there are a lot of people involved in this. Our essential key partners are the state government and the state water agency, a number of civil society organizations, and other collaborators too numerous to list, some of which include Cultivo Land, which is working on monetizing ecosystem services, the Metropolitan Environmental Fund of Monterrey, the University of Monterrey, and the Harvard Graduate School of Design. This is our impact diagram. I'll take a minute to walk you through it because there's quite a lot of boxes here. But what we're aiming to show here is how our key activities, which are shown in green boxes, connect to and tie to our intermediate and long-term outcomes. So you can generally look at this moving from left to right in time. And so if you go to the left, we have our starting point, which is a degraded watershed and insufficient funds for restoration. In our phase one, which is called agreement, this is largely what we've been working on through the Peregrine Accelerator program. We call our line of work there policy influence. We use the resources, which you'll see in a circle there, of a network of negotiation skills, some power of persuasion, to work with the state government and the water agency to get buy-in for a water utility surcharge program. We believe we are at a point where an agreement or a contract with those entities is feasible in the near future. And that takes us to phase two. So the top green box there is system design. That's design of our administrative, technical, also including financial systems. For that, we need the resources of skills and staff, which we have in-house. And our intermediate result there would be effective financial and technical management, which would be indicated by solicited feedback from our whole team of partners. And moving down a row, another line of activity in this phase is data collection and analysis. This primarily includes the development of our GIS portal so that we can track and monitor restoration projects. For that, we also need skills and funding. And once we have that kind of system in place, we'll be able to implement a true adaptive management plan and mechanism for watershed restoration on an ongoing decadal basis. And so that will, as you know, with adaptive management is a cycle, you're creating new targets, and we would always be looking at seeing whether we were achieving our targets. And then the information that we get from our data collection analysis, both the GIS portal and some other research that's going on, will feed into phase three, which is a public communications and marketing campaign. For that, we need some resources that we don't have in-house, including graphic design and the development of multimedia products. But we anticipate that public communications campaign will lead to public support for the water utility program. All of these together lead to our intermediate outcome, which is increased amount of resources that are deployed for restoration on the ground. And then finally, to our ultimate outcome, which is a more resilient watershed, resilient to climate change, and ultimately providing more water security for the residents of Monterey. So some takeaways here are that the essence of this effort is making the water utility surcharge program effective and accountable to the residents of Monterey who will be funding it. And if we succeed at making this surcharge program effective and accountable, then the broader Rio Ciudad program will increase water security and climate resilience for 5.4 million people, the poorest of whom are currently most at risk. This goes a little bit deeper into a couple of things I just talked about, our needs and our outcomes. So in addition to funding, which we'll talk about later in our presentation, our lines of work require several resources. The first is knowledge, and specifically knowledge of our aquifer recharge areas. We wanted to mention this because this is a change from our original proposal that you may have seen. We originally thought that we would be asking for support for this as part of our Peregrine ask, but we've commissioned a study of this, and we're now focusing our program here solely on the development of the governance mechanism and the public outreach campaign. For our work, we also need a network, and we've invested a lot of time and energy into developing that, both with partners who have been part of who have been colleagues of Terra Habitus team for decades, and also with new partners in government agencies in the water department and those who would participate in the delivery of the restoration mechanism. And then finally, we need skills in the design of administrative and technical and financial systems. And this expertise that we largely have in-house within the Terra Habitus team. So in terms of additional resources that we need for this project, by and large, we either have the expertise on the Terra Habitus team, or we're actively working with our partners to secure that so we would have all these resources in place. And again, this is specifically for the non-financial resources. So all of this work together then culminates in the whole reason we're here, which are our outcomes. And because we have a program that is nested within a broader program, we've defined our outcomes and measurements for success at two different levels. So our program outcome would be increased funding from the utility surcharge program that would be deployed to nonprofit partners and government agencies for watershed restoration. And we would measure that by the number of dollars that go, the amount of funding that goes directly into on-the-ground restoration. And we feel very confident that that number would be significantly higher if the appropriate governance mechanisms are in place than it would be otherwise. If all that happens and the funding and resources are deployed effectively, we would get to an ultimate outcome that's a restored water basin that's resilient to drought and catastrophic climate events, providing water security in Monterey. This is our timeline. We feel pretty confident that we could have a collaboration agreement with the state government and the water agency just after the first of the year. By summer, we could have administrative, technical, and financial systems in place and a GIS portal in operation. And then by August, we will, by August, we would be able to launch our project and communications campaign.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I forgot to mention something at the beginning. All of the pictures of wildlife that you have seen in this presentation are taken in the Santa Catarina River, and of course they were taken by a great photographer, a friend of mine from National Geographic, Carlos Navarro. Serment did this pro bono, but this gives you an idea of how resilient, even in the current degraded condition of the river, it hosts a wonderful diversity of wildlife. So, as with any project, especially projects that have to do with governments and with complex situations at this scale that we are tackling, the first challenge is that government decisions are sometimes political, well, not sometimes, always political, and sometimes unpredictable. So that's one big challenge. Also, the new surcharge that they are planning is a very low surcharge, equivalent to roughly 30 cents of a peso for every cubic meter of water supplied, which in a typical household will be like $0.50 per month. There will be reluctance of citizens to pay more taxes and fees. I mean, that's always a situation. And so we have to be very careful how we frame all of communications and how we show early on results. So we also have risks that we are looking at. One is that the crisis in 2024 becomes so bad that it diverts political resources and the attention of everybody, or that we have other environmental crises, or that in the end, government opts for engineered solutions instead of nature-based solutions. Next, please. So what are we thinking in terms of budget? We prepared 3 levels of potential funding. The first one, which is the low end, with $75,000, we could launch a public information campaign and set up the enterprise resource management system for the model, which in turn would give us a robust system for dealing with more complex responsibilities in the future. With $100,000 of a gift, we could do the same 2 things, plus training key personnel at the government and funding part of the GIS portal, which is our new challenge. And with $200,000, we could fund a good percentage, almost 80%, 70% of the GIS portal, and put together in a specific web page for the project, a public dashboard for everybody to follow on what the government is doing with this money. These amounts that I am showing are not net of overhead. As in many institutions, we have an overhead charge of 12%, and so that would have to be deducted. Next, please. So this is the project, and I have to say that the experience with Peregrine Fund Accelerator has been an amazing experience, because not only was it really fun and it was very well organized and structured, but it allowed us to put together relations or to create relations with our fellow colleagues, and as in many processes, this had some extra bonuses, and I want to show two of them. One of them has been mentioned by our colleagues from Pro Natura and from Bat Conservation International. We're putting together an agave nursery to participate in the regeneration of burnt areas in the region. So that's a very attractive way of working together and something very tangible and very appreciated. And this nursery will have two lines of income to achieve financial sustainability. One will be obviously to provide to the cityscaping or to the newest way of landscaping in stress areas, which is providing a commercial supply of valuable agaves to the people in the city. And the other, and obviously the most important, will be to have a permanent, consistent supply of agave plants for restoration efforts. So that's a project of $250,000 that we are raising the money. Of that, we already have, as you heard from Rosario, close to $50,000. So that's very exciting. The other one, and this is my last intervention, the other one, we put a great name to that one. It's the Rio Grande Pool Finance Partnership. And basically what I did is, after learning to think big, thanks to the Peregrine Fund Partnership, I went to two places where I have been either part of the board or part of the technical committees, which is two large institutions in Mexico, funding institutions, and asked them if they would be interested in providing $1.5 million each for a 5-year program. And with those $3 million, we can go and have this challenge to a U.S. Funding institution and have a $4.5 million program over 5 years for funding water-related projects in the Rio Grande Basin. Of course, this is just a concept, but there's interest from part of the two Mexican institutions. So, and everything is still to be done, which is all of the governance, all of the design, all of the programmatic approach. But I think it's nice to think big, and this would definitely leverage resources in the region. Next, please. So these are our two extra bonuses, and Katie said that I had 25 minutes. I am almost done. So thank you, Salazar Center. Thank you to our mentors. Thank you, our fellows in the cohort. Thank you, Kathy, Jen, and Shoshana. And this has been a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorenzo. Great presentation. If you want to go ahead and take down your slide deck, we can have you and Jen and Jimena on screen, and I will turn it over to our evaluators. Go ahead, Johnny.
Thanks, Lorenzo and Jennifer. Great presentation, and great to see the outcomes that have already happened through your participation in the Peregrine and Accelerators programs. Really amazing that in the past 6 months alone, you've already seen progress. So my question is that I believe there is a water fund in Monterrey, the Metropolitan Water Fund of Monterrey. And I'm curious to know how your project interacts with or aligns or is working or partnering with that in the San Juan Santa Catarina River, especially.
Okay. I am a founding member of that board. It's Fondo. Originally, it was a water fund. Now the name is Fondo Ambiental Metropolitano de Monterrey. This project has been presented to them. We are in the process of formalizing them in the financing of the GIS portal and the priorities. They are doing complementary priority recharge areas work, and they are one of the two institutions that are willing to commit this $1.5 million. So we are very close to them. And they are part of the project, and they are part of this collective of civil society organizations that hopefully will help us move this project through. They are very, very well connected with Servicios de Agua y Drenaje. They do lots of research projects for them, and they are also working on an updated version of the water resiliency program for plan for 2050. So they are fully engaged with us.
That's great. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so Lolly and then Faye.
Thanks. So Lorenzo, I'm just a little curious as to what are the sort of more community implications, or how do you envision this project as really like touching on the lives of communities? Like, to me, it's a project that encompasses such a large area as the city of Monterrey. Like, if you could just tell me how, or Jennifer, sorry, I did not mean to just address Lorenzo. I'm just seeing him right here in my corner. But whoever wants to pick up this answer or this question would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, let me give you a short answer to that first, and then maybe Jennifer wants to talk also. In year 2000, and when I was the CEO of Fondo Mexicano, we put together a program called Watersheds and Cities, which started with 3 watersheds and cities: Saltillo, Mexico City, and Oaxaca. And the project has evolved into 12 watersheds and cities, and it has been funded for the last 22 years with close to $1 million per year. And it's a success story, but the most successful of the stories of those 12 watersheds and cities is the city of Saltillo, where the city of Saltillo has a monetary exchange or link with the communities in the Sierra de Zapalinamé, and the intermediary is a local nonprofit. And basically, communities will benefit because most of the management work in the watersheds is done obviously by rural communities. So the benefit for the city dwellers is that they have a more reliable water supply. But obviously, with that money, someone has to do the work, and someone has to do the soil stabilization. Someone has to fight fires or prevent fires in the early stage. Someone has to check for the health of the trees. Someone has to work on the reforestation. So someone has to be a community ranger and monitoring entity. So all of that we are planning on moving to the communities, and so that they become like the operational partners in the site for the project.
If I could add just one more thing to that, I think Lorenzo's addressed the urban and rural difference in communities. Also wanted to touch on the difference in communities as a social justice or social equity issue, which is that, as he mentioned, when we hit a day zero scenario in Monterrey before, it was the communities that were the poorest areas that were hardest hit. Lorenzo experienced that in Monterrey, perhaps others of you did too. Several years ago, I was in Cape Town for a summer whenever that city, Cape Town, South Africa, nearly ran out of water. Same exact story there. It was people who did not have access to resources and infrastructure who were queuing in lines to get access to water. And many people have talked about this as being something that major cities all around the world will face in arid and desertifying areas. So I think if we can get a blueprint in place for how to work with a watershed and increase water security in arid environments, this is something that might affect not only people in need in Monterrey, but that could be used in other places.
Hey.
Thank you both for that presentation. It was really interesting and exciting to see something like this take shape. I have 2 questions, and I don't know how much time we have, Katie, so I can just choose one. My first question kind of builds a little bit on sort of the community piece that you guys were just talking about, but what types of kind of public education and outreach are you guys planning on doing as a part of your that component of your plan moving forward? Obviously, it's really important helping to community members to understand the importance of watershed management and what that means and what that means for them. So what's the approach that you guys have, particularly kind of related to that budget item?
If you want you want to answer first, Jennifer, or should I proceed first?
You go ahead.
Okay, so like in many environmental issues or themes, we assume that everybody knows what we know as conservationists. So we talk about watersheds and about pollution and the atmosphere and water cycle and all that. In reality, people know very little about how things work outside of the traditional things that happen in the city, like making a reservation in a restaurant or going to the bank or keeping a balance in your checking account. So it's a huge task to get people to just to understand what a water cycle is and how we depend on a much larger area than the city itself. It's a huge challenge. So for the last 3 years, we have been publishing in the printed media, and we have been also publishing in the digital media and different magazines, and sort of trying to communicate in simple words how we depend on the natural capital that surrounds the city and how vulnerable the city is and the development and everything to this. So our public campaign our communications campaign will address not only the urban communities, which are the ones paying, but also make a link so that they know they have partners in the mountains. And a key element here will be the enterprises, the private sector, the large corporations, because in the end, they have the biggest stake. 60% of not 60%. 60% of the water, of industrial water in Monterrey, is consumed by bottling companies that do either beer, soft drinks, or just plain water, and they need water with great quality. So they also need to be educated. So our communication campaign will go across all of those sectors, and of course, like we are dreamers, like all of you are, and our biggest dream at this moment is to have the new Tesla plant, which is going to be operative probably in 2027, engaged in this project, because they will be putting a plant in the middle of the let's say of the watershed problem, which is the Santa Catarina River and the municipality of Santa Catarina. So we want to address private sector, we want to address citizens, but we also need to put together through the campaign this obligation of having a permanent governance of water. So of course we won't be designing the campaign ourselves. We have to go to experts, and that will cost. So that's more or less the simple answer.
Helpful. Thank you, Lorenzo. Jennifer, did you have anything to add on that?
I think I'll let you go ahead and ask your other question.
My second question,
short on time.
And I think I have figured it out, but I just want to make sure. So the idea is obviously, as you said, Lorenzo, the financing would come from the city, but the actual like nature-based solution practices would happen across the watershed, up in the upper watershed, also in the city, as well as kind of helping to do efforts there. Yeah.
There's most of the solutions will happen in the rural areas, but there's a very important solution in the city, which is reducing consumption and becoming responsible with the water. And the government now has a great campaign, which is be 100-liter citizen, which means that somehow you have to figure out a way of using no more than 100 liters per day. So that's the campaign. So reducing consumption in Monterrey, that is part of the solution also. And this is I am a little bit ashamed of telling you this, but there's like between 30 and 40% of water is not accountable for, which means either lost through leaks, not invoiced, or illegal at all. So part of the solution in the city of reducing that unaccounted water, reducing consumption, and of course improving the resilience and the functionality of the ecosystem so that they can provide nature-based solutions.
That was great. Thank you. Oh yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
I'll add one quick thing there, which is that most of the watershed work that actually contributes to water security will take place in the uplands. But in the broader Rio Ciudad program, there is also work that will be done on the Santa Catarina River as it flows through Monterey. So there will be a big new public amenity with a lot of recreation opportunities that everyone can access. We didn't talk about it too much today because it's not part of the nature-based solution component to it, although it does have its own nature-based solution element.
Awesome. Thank you both. Really appreciate it.
Ernesto needs to ask a question. He's a local.
Yep, we're close on time, but go for it, Ernesto. This will be the last one.
Okay, gracias. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Alita, my wife, and I do 65 liters, and this week we will include our washer in our circuit of rainwater, so we'll go to 40 liters per day per person. At any rate, I enjoyed the grand vision, being a native of this area, and a fighter for these types of things for as long as Lorenzo or thereabouts. I think that it's a great project overall. In terms of strategy, I do have a question. Most water works in the world, which are progressive and really the ones that we should be sort of using as our benchmark, they are including the cost of caring for nature and caring for the watershed and caring for the water sources as part of the bill. So I would like to know the thought process of going to the people when this should be the responsibility of the company that provides the service, and why not go that route to make the provider responsible for the care of the sources of water, which is what's available in some of the good companies in the world. Thank you.
So somehow, Ernesto, and I don't have a clear answer to your question because, as you know, Servicios de Agua y Drenaje it's a government type institution. It's not fully private like Aguas de Saltillo, who is a company from Spain that came and has the concession for the provisioning of water. So Agua y Drenaje de Monterrey is sort of like a hybrid public institution, state agency with a lots of private participation in its board and advisory committees in its governance. However, you know very well that the transparency is not one of the characteristics or the virtues of government agencies in Mexico. And so the risk, and yes, they should be providing, given that they make a profit. At this moment, we are not sure if they are making a profit. I think it should be a shared responsibility, and it has to do a lot with pricing of the water, because here we're talking about a specific price of water that we already have, but then a surcharge for taking care of the water basin. But in the end, it's a pricing item, and it's a very sensible item because they don't want to increase prices. So I don't have an answer to that. I think a good first step would be to put together a very clean, transparent, effective, and accountable mechanism for spending that little surcharge that they are proposing, and then building on top of that. Because once people see that there's some responsibility and some evidence that the money is going the right way, they probably won't mind having an increase in the price of water. But at this moment, it would be a political disaster, and they would never, ever consider that.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone. With that, we have reached the conclusion of this 2-day set of presentations. So thank you all for your time and participating in this. I think our decision in the next 24 hours, that process is going to be really, really tough. Everything that we heard over the past 2 days is really exciting and compelling work. As I mentioned at the top this morning, as well as yesterday, we've recorded this whole thing and it'll be available both to anybody who's interested, but as well to all the teams if you all want that as a tool in your toolbox to share with partners and funders. And we'll be making an announcement next Wednesday on which of these 9 teams will receive additional funding from the center to implement their proposed solutions. We've also had a number of funders tuning in on the Vimeo stream over the last 2 days, and any and all who are interested in connecting with any of these teams more and learning more about their work. We are happy to facilitate that. That is definitely one of the intentions of this final presentation event. So with that, I will let everybody get back to their afternoons. Thank you so much all for your time and participation the last 2 days. And we look forward to sharing updates with everybody soon.
Thank you.